As the food scraps break down, eventually sterile bedding will populate with microbes. But doesn't it make sense to get a jump start by introducing microbes before the worms get there? There are so many ways to capture microbes. The easiest that I have found is just to use indigenous materials, either as your bedding or along with your bedding. And I get it, some folks are just in a situation where they need to use coconut coir and cardboard. If you're doing this at all in any way, anything that you make is still going to be hands down better than anything you buy at the store. When it comes to mineral content, the robustness of our castings depends on the quality of the bedding and the food that we started out with. So what do you think is more full of minerals? Coconut coir and cardboard, or leaf litter and rotting sticks from the forest and literal stardust from the ground? I'm guessing the stardust has a higher mineral content than the cardboard. I still try to compost cardboard. Once I got into making hot compost, I realized that was the ticket. You can still pick out an apple here or there, but it's getting hard to tell what was what. It's all turning into, ooh, the middle is the middle's very warm. Hot compost is basically just a big, huge pile of microbes and worms. And when I started using compost as bedding, the food scraps vanish so quickly you can almost see it with the naked eye. Using leaf mold, forest litter, sand, silt, and clay, that's nature's way. I chop up the scraps before I introduce them to the worm box. I'm not chopping this up so that the worms can eat it. I'm chopping this up to create more surface area for the microbes. The microbes will break them down into smaller and smaller pieces, and eventually the pieces will get small enough that they'll fit into the worm's mouth. We chew our food. In our stomach and intestines, acid and microbes go to work breaking it down so that our bodies can use it. It's the same thing that happens in this worm box. The eventual goal is to create something that the plants can use. Quality, right? Quality for our own gardens. And that's where this all comes full circle. You see, microbes are very light. It's difficult for them to stay in one spot. They're sticky on the outside, and as they move around in the bedding, little pieces of whatever you use as bedding get stuck to their bodies. So in my case, since I use sand, silt, clay, and leaf litter, what is stuck to my microbes are minerals. The problem is when the minerals are stuck to the bodies of bacteria, they're still not plant soluble. That's where our worms come in. Worms eat everybody, and this is where the magic happens. Worms will eat whatever fits into their mouth. When they take organic matter into their mouths, they're also taking in bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes that are filled with minerals that they've pulled from the soil. The worm grinds all of this in its gizzard, and it passes through its digestive tract where it comes into contact with the worm's enzymes. When the enzymes combine with the mineral-rich organic matter, this is the moment when those minerals, when that stardust turns into something that the plants can take up and use to grow. So doesn't it make sense to enrich your bedding with microbes before the worms get there? And how do you do that? Well, the easiest way is to mix in material that is already covered with microbes from the jump. And that's how I started. When I stopped using manure, I started using leaves. That was my first introduction to indigenous materials. And frankly, I just needed more bedding. Without the use of manure, I needed more material to fill in the space. And so I started pulling different kinds of soil from different parts of the property. This one is sand, the sandy one from the creek. And this one is the runoff from the top of the hill. Up on the hill, I'm able to find soil that is more dense and made of clay. That has a whole ecosystem of microbes growing in it. Then I come down to the creek. The sand and silt contains different minerals, and they have different microbes breaking those things down. Then I've got forest litter and mycelium and leaf mold. When these things combine, it is a powerhouse of microbial allies. I call them allies, but they all eat each other. But they do work together and break down all of this material into the most beautiful, nutrient-rich product that we could possibly put into our gardens. Worms eat anything that can fit into their mouth, and when they take in these tiny pieces of food scraps or sand or silt, taking in living bacteria and fungi, nematodes and protozoa, and they use the minerals that are in the organic material like crushing stones. They swoosh them around in their gizzard and it crushes everybody else. Then it passes on through the worm's digestive tract, and it is this part of the process, that final breakdown and the combination with the enzymes, that makes all of the minerals that are in native soil plant soluble. Nature's amazing. There is a complexity and a simplicity that is playing out simultaneously that is just beautiful. It's beautiful. And I feel lucky to be able to participate in it. Learning about microbes actually taught me about life. I'm forever grateful that I've awakened to the role I play in this whole thing. I'm the steward. I can breed and cultivate any microbe I choose. And I can front load my worm boxes and my worm beds with the very best team of decomposters possible on Earth. Microbes rule everything. When I started making compost, my microbial count went off the chart. Everything changed. Suddenly, instead of taking 2 weeks to break down food scraps, it seems like they're gone overnight. They literally melt. And I know it's the microbial activity. And the worms have never been happier. Microbes are the ticket. In coming videos, I'll be showing you ways in which I capture indigenous microorganisms from the environment. But for now, I would just encourage everyone, whether you're using coconut coir and cardboard or manure, whatever you're using in bedding, I strongly encourage you to consider adding in leaf mold, forest litter, and at least small amounts, if you can find it, of sand, silt, and clay. You won't regret it. Using indigenous microorganisms is like stomping on the gas. What do you think about all this? I'd love to hear it, and I hope you've got something out of this. I don't know about y'all, but it makes me feel good to know that the rest of you are out there and you're doing your thing too. I know when I bring in vegetables from my garden and put them into my body, I too become the sand, the silt, the clay, the leaves, the forest litter. What do you want to be made of? I choose stardust. Thanks for watching. See ya.